Welcome back, you filthy exiles. So we're about 8 or 9 hours away from the new league announcement, along with PoE2 information. And I thought I'd keep in this trend in the lead up to the new league of providing advice based on some of the comments that came back when I reached out for some feedback. So this video, if you haven't already figured out what it's going to be about based on the description, is actually going to be some currency generating tips, in particular tips that will help newer players, maybe not so much, well, definitely not hardcore players or the upper echelon 1%, but this is going to get you started if you've sort of always struggled with generating currency at the start of a league, or you're a little unsure about what to do. I'm going to give you some links to some videos, some tips, and about 7 tips to be precise, and yeah, just to get you started. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's get into the video and start with the first item on the list. Okay, so item number 1, or tip number 1, is actually going to be mapping. Now, most newer players go into endgame mapping. They don't really understand a great deal about the system, and it's relatively new, in particular for people who have never dealt with a similar mechanic in other games, and there are many other ARPGs that simply don't have this sort of mechanic because this is pretty crazy in PoE. But there's generally some general rules around mapping that make this an efficient process, and in fact most or a great deal of players will make a lot of their currency through mapping, and it's much simpler than you think. Now, this looks crazy, and we'll talk about juicing maps and everything briefly, because this isn't going to be a detailed guide. This is just to sort of get you to tug on a few threads so you do a little bit more investigation to see what you like doing. And this isn't comprehensive in any way, shape, or form to the point where this is every method. This is just some ones that I use. But mapping is about efficiency. So while there is the notion of juicing maps, and yes, that can yield high-level profits, there's also the notion of less time spent in maps with a higher focus on specific drops and gains. Showing the value or having a higher level value is what you want to target in maps. And the way that you get more efficiency from mapping is by simply having a better loot filter. And in this case, if I was to go UI, what I would generally run is a strict loot filter by Neversink's strict loot filter. Now, the reason why you do this is all that trash that drops that you're potentially inclined to pick up, you won't be picking up. You won't be able to see it on the ground. It'll just be basically vendor trash that's invisible to the eyes. But everything else that's actually worth something is going to drop. And that's why a lot of players, in particular people who focus on mapping as a currency generator, run strict filters. And you'll see in a lot of upper end players that stream and whatnot, they actually map to generate the currency, as it is one of the most profitable formats of making currency. But if you've got the right filter, it means the only items that are dropping are going to be items that are worth something. And this feeds into the next thing that we're going to talk about. Now, with doing strict loot filters, so you'll set, you might go very strict, for example, and you'll load your loot filter. Now, the other thing that you need to do when you're running maps is just have a dump tab. And as you can see here, when I'm running maps, or if you've seen me streaming, while I'm not the most efficient person, you'll pick up the items you deem to be of value, you'll price check them, which we'll talk about how you do that next. And then basically you'll just dump it straight into your tab, chuck a sell price onto it, so you go whatever for sale. Like you'll see certain things in here if I've been selling, which I haven't really been focusing too much on at this league. I think it was in dump tab 2. There we go. We've got stuff for sale in here. And then basically you'll just move on. So you'll do your map, go in, dump everything into your dump tab, and then at the very end of the run, you'll price check everything. A lot of people get bogged down with this item management sort of thing. Don't do that. Dump tab, run your maps, run a strict loot filter, bam, you'll make currency. Now, how do you figure out the pricing so quickly? Well, what I actually run is a macro called PoE trade. Now you can see the price that comes up on here. This macro in particular, it is legitimate to use under the T's and C's of Path of Exile. So you won't get banned for using it, and PoE or Grinding Gear Games has made that very clear. But the other advantage of using, and I'll put a link to this particular loot filter, this particular trade macro in the description. The reason why I use this trade macro is it's quite useful in the fact that it's very, very quick. And the other thing is if you hold control down, you can actually change the parameters in the filter. So for example, if I was to do a price check on this belt, but I wanted to focus on particular belts with just 15% recovery, I would then hold control to keep this window open and run over search and find out that actually this might actually sell for 15 or 16 chaos. Now the other thing is when you're looking at this macro, it's not precise. And usually the lowest price might be somebody trying to extort the market or flip, or just basically offload gear. Now what I normally do is look for about a medium price. In this case, the highest aggregate price is about 10 chaos. And then I would probably price this about 10 chaos. It's likely you'll sell it for that. But if you want to liquidate it quicker, drop it 1 chaos. Literally, people are that sensitive that they will sell shit for 1 chaos. They will buy shit for 1 chaos less, and you'll just get flooded. Now, the other thing when you're doing mapping, and we'll talk about this later down the track, but even things like scarabs, everything, all this sells. But we'll talk about this soon. And I actually know a bunch of people that sell literally this. So we're looking at Gilded Ambush Scarabs alone are 11 chaos. Now, if you're running map after map, you're running, you know, for example, Legion encounters in your maps, and you're getting these scarabs, or you're running anything that's dropping this, or you're getting it from divination cards, sell them. If you're not going to use them, sell them. Currency sitting in your currency stash tabs is dead currency. Convert it to something that you're going to use, in particular at the start of the league when people are buying, and then basically buy the gear that you need, keep upgrading, keep getting high levels of strength, because that'll feed into one of the strategies that I'll mention later down this list. Now, so that's using a strict loot filter, efficient mapping in that respect, and this is all in the first tip. And basically using the right trade macros. Juicing your map is the other thing. So if you're going to do a map, even if they're basic level, you know, you get to red tier maps and you want to make a bit more currency. So we'll go to cells. We'll grab this map as an example, which is just a T12 map. We'll chisel it while it's white, because that means it's only going to cost you 4 chisels. If you do it when it's blue, it's going to cost you, you get, I think it's 4% per chisel, or 2%. And then if you do it when it's alked and it's yellow, you're going to go 1% per chisel, and it's just a waste of chisels. So chisel it while it's white, and then you're going to go bam, and then, okay, Bob's your uncle. Now, if you've got delirium orbs and you get to the point where you've got a character strong enough, then you're going to smack it with a delirium orb, and then basically chuck a sacrifice fragment. If you've got limited sacrifice fragments, use 1 sacrifice fragment, and then basically you're going to grab a sextant, you're going to go bam, highlight it on the map, wherever the hell this is. There we go. Chuck a sextant in, all 4 of the watchstones. Bam, pop your map in, Bob's your uncle. Okay, and run that map. Now that's basic level juicing. It can go much further than that. You can run scarabs. Try and fill as much as you can. Maximize the usage of your maps. Minimize the and increase the strictness of your filter. Have an effective trade macro, and mapping becomes very profitable very quickly. Okay, so tip number 2. Delving. Delving is my favorite way to make early currency, because basically in this, and I'll put the link to a video that I uploaded in the last league that provided guidance around this, and I might even put a video feed up in the video somewhere up here while I'm talking. But essentially delving is super efficient when you get to the right level, and even at low levels, so talking down to level 50, which if we bring up the map here, well, you know, I got down to I was farming at 245s, but even getting down to 50 is relatively straightforward. And now with the new Atlas points, sustaining sulfite has become much easier to be able to maintain mapping. Not to mention being able to generate scarabs and things like that. So sulfite scarabs to generate more sulfite, and also the Nico missions in your map device. It's all relatively efficient. So basically, you know, you could start even pushing down to level 55, which is level 71 zones or biomes in relation to delving. And then basically what you're going to find down there are going to be fossils. So right now the prices are a bit shanky, and that's just because it's league end. But you know, you're looking at perfect fossils. You might have 3 drop in a single, fossil depository. can't remember the name specifically because I haven't played PoE for about 2 weeks. But you might have 2 or 3 of those drop at once. And if you have 3 drop, or even 2, you've got 14 chaos. And even if you have 3 drop, you've got 21 chaos, 7 chaos with 1. And while that might seem small, when you're the way that farming fossils works is the further down you go, the higher volume the drops. And generally with fossils, by about week 2 or 3, people are going fucking mad for them because everyone's trying to start master crafting their gear. So they're basically just fossil slamming like motherfuckers. So they'll come in, they'll buy, if you put up, 5 gilded fossils, you're going to sell those 5 gilded fossils. The time commitment for you, not very much to get down there. You're going to generate sulfite as you map. And if you use the first tip, you're going to generate currency while you map. Then you're going to generate sulfite. And then you're going to go down into the mines. And you're going to be able to generate more currency from doing delve. Now, I've got a guide that I think the video's up here, as I said. I'll put it in the description. Follow my strategy, and that'll generate your currency through delving. But delving is pretty much my go-to. Once I'm past early mapping, or if I get bored, I go and stay and delve for a bit and just generate shitloads of currency that way. Normally, that's how I fund most of my builds, is just by farming deeper into delves. I'll get to about 50, farm up a decent amount, get to 150. 150 is a nice sweet spot, and basically you'll also get resonators as well, which are these other things, if I can find them in the listing because they keep changing it around. Now, resonators at early levels of the league, these potent chaotics may sell for like 5 chaos, anywhere up to 5 chaos. If you get a 4 socket, you know, even these right now, you're selling 122 chaos for these. Now, these are rare, but there's a probability that they'll drop, probably more so than exalts in the mines. Now, the other thing is you might find exalts as you go through, and the other thing is you might be able to farm, you can farm specific gear in the delve that you cannot find anywhere else. For example, +1 Spectre chests will drop in delve. You can't find that in any other part of the game. That is a delve specific item as far as I'm aware, unless they patch that out. That's one of the few places where you can get that. Now, you can correct me in the description. I'm not a crafting master, and this video isn't going to focus on master crafting, because if you really wanted to earn like huge exalts, you'd probably invest your time there. But for us plebeian or average players, that's not really worth the effort, and it takes away a lot of the fun when you're just playing for currency generation. Normally play for generating enough currency to make a sick build. And that gets me to the end game, and then I just slam the end game until I'm bored with the league, and that's pretty much my strategy. But everyone has a different way of playing. Anyway, delve farming, tip number 2, excellent way to make currency, especially early in the. Okay, so tip number 3 is actually going to be 5 linking uniques. Now, this only really works in the early days of the league when people haven't gotten their optimum 6 links and they're sort of fishing around for gear that gets them over the line. Now, you will get 6 link drops, not guaranteed, but with a higher probability strike rate if you do corrupted side areas. So you might get uniques. And the other thing is if you do the, if you do heists as well, you've got a probability of getting them in there. So there's doing it that way. The other alternative is, and jeweler's touches aren't this cheap at the start of the league, they're usually a lot more. But you could sell, either generate jeweler's touches by cashing in your silver coins as you pick those up and picking up the prophecies through Navali. The other alternative is usually 5 linking a unique just means armor scrapping it up to 20%, and then literally just smack it with a bunch of jeweler's orbs until you get at least a minimum of 5 links. Just don't bang it away to try and get 6 sockets. Sorry, when I say that, not 5 links, 5 sockets. And then usually getting a 5 link isn't too bad. It's usually, you know, within 50 or so, sometimes 100 orbs of fusing. Now, is that the most efficient way to use orbs of fusing early up? Probably not. Is it an easy way to generate currency if you're a bit unsure about how currency flipping works? Absolutely. People generally buy 5 links at the start of the league. Depending on the type of 5 link it is, it could go from anywhere from 30 chaos up to 60 chaos easily. And in the first 1 or 2, well, maybe the first week and a half, you'll be able to flip that shit pretty quickly. If they're good uniques that are dropping, for example, shavs, selling 5 links of that, you'll probably get about 60 to 70 chaos if you have a 1 link, if you have a 1 socket shav. drop, and you get a 5 link. People use it as transitional gear, so you'll actually make a bit of currency back. And by all means, if you're actually doing that on your character build, make sure that you sell that gear as soon as you're not using it, unless you're going to use it on another character. Don't waste it in your stash tab. Don't do what I do, seed all this shit in my stash tab and never sell it. As soon as you can offload it, add that to your currency bank, fund your build, Bob's your uncle, you're on your way. Anyway, that's tip number 3. Sell 5 links. If you can get 5 link uniques. Normal 5 links don't necessarily pick up very much, but 5 link uniques, definitely in the first week or so of the league, you'll be able to offload that very quickly. Okay, so I sort of hinted at this in the last part of the video, or the tip number 3, but the 4th tip that I'm actually going to mention is currency flipping. Now, what is currency flipping? So everything in your stash tab that you put in your stash tab has some format of value, whether that be good or bad, but that changes like a stock market constantly. The way that PoE works is phenomenal. It works the same way that a bloody all odds market works, or an exchange works, which is crazy. But anyway, to find out what currencies are worth what, you're going to go to poe.ninja, and I'll put a link in the description to this. And then basically you're going to go to currency. Now, there's all different formats of currency, whether it be map fragments or whatever. But whatever drops in your maps, and whatever drops in bulk in particular, keep, I guess, aware of it. Now, in particular, some people flip Exalt orbs, and usually they start out very cheap in the league. It's usually more profitable to collect more Exalt orbs, and if you can generate that early chaos from delving, buy Exalt orbs while they're cheap. Now, that didn't work in Heist League. It went to shit, and Exalts hit like 15 chaos because GGG basically bricked the way the currency market worked. Now, that didn't happen last league, thankfully, but the last league, that was fucked. But anyway, there was a point where I think it got to like almost 5 chaos, and it was like, wow, Exalts have become worthless. But anyway, keep track to currency flip. There's a lot more complex and robust strategy, so I'm not going to say use this video as an absolute guide. This is something to take away and do a bit more investigation on. But basically, if you're looking at PoE Ninja, for example, Ancient Orbs. Now, one of the strategies that I always use, and it'll be the next one that I talk about, is Harbinger Farming. And the reason why is because Ancient Orbs are worth quite a lot. Now, throughout the league, they've maintained a relatively consistent pricing, which is around 18 to 21 chaos, 22 chaos at high peaks. The reason being is everyone wants fucking headhunters. So what do you do? Well, you can use the Atlas, abuse the mechanic for Harbinger generation, which is likely going to be nerfed in the next league, but who knows, we don't know what the patch notes are. And then basically just farm yourself Ancient Orb shards. And those 20 shards, which you'll get relatively quickly, will equate to an Ancient Orb, and that is worth about 20 chaos. And that's only going to take a couple of maps in the Valdo's Rest area to farm. Now, I got a video on that, and I'll talk about that next. But anyway, so Ancient Orbs, you could basically farm Ancient Orbs, offload 5 Ancient Orbs after about 35 minutes of farming, and make an Exalt. Bob's your uncle. Really simple. That's the most basic form of currency farming that I could probably bring up here. Now, obviously, you're going to have Divine Orbs will drop. Exalt shards are worth 5 chaos each. Now, if you're generating chaos, for the point of having chaos, you could do it that way. If you're generating Exalts, obviously you're going to want to trade chaos for Exalts and hold on your Exalts. And we'll talk about these Awakener Orbs and all these other Hunter's Exalt Orbs and everything at the very end of the video, because that's pretty much one of the last tips I have. Now, currency flipping, currency selling, and selling bulk currencies are a few different methods to do that. Now, you can sell in bulk currencies, and I'm not going to go into great detail on this guide, but basically a lot of currency flippers will have multiple currency tabs, and basically what they'll do is they'll take the currency they want to sell. So say you're selling chromatic orbs, and this is one such example. So you'll look for a second currency tab, which I do have a second currency tab. You'll set it so that you can price each individual whatever, and then basically you'll set an exact price. Now you could go 20 divided by 1 chaos equates to, or how does that work? Anyway, you could basically set it to like 1 chaos. There's a calculation that you can put in there that basically apportions the price. Now, 20 divided by 1 is going to be 20. So if you go 20 divided by 2, then, you know, it'll be 10 chaos for, you know, each individual item. Now, if a single chromatic orb is worth, you know, a certain amount, you'll basically come up with a divider for that, and the easiest way to do that is to actually use PoE Trade, or to use the PoE Trade app. So if we go to PoE, I think I've got it on my favorites because I use PoE Trade. So basically, if you do bulk item exchange, you can come up with the items. So you want to sell GCPs, and so the currency I want, and the currency, chaos is going to be what you want, and the currency that you want to sell would be GCP. So then you can basically do a search for a bulk price, and then basically you can go, you know, what you would pay. So, you know, for 30 chaos, you would get 70. Well, that's a bad example because that's someone who's manipulating the market. But anyway, it'll give you a unit value of what the item's worth, in either way the currency exchange works, and you can sell in bulk. Now, selling in bulk is a really good way to make a lot more currency, and normally it's more convenient for sellers because selling individual currency items is really shit. So you can basically put this into another stash tab, price that based on whatever the median price is for the market, and then flip mass currency that way. And now there are other videos, and you can do the research on how to do it further. But basically what I will generally do in League is have a second stash tab up and running, and I'll drop other currencies down. For example, you know, if I want to sell sextants, they'll sell for right now 1.1 chaos. Or 1 chaos, sorry, 1.1 chaos, but at some point in the league they were selling for 5 chaos early in the league, and you may not need Awakened Sextant straight away. Orbs of Unmaking were selling for about 9 to 15 chaos at one point early in the league. You know, even like your Simulacrum splinters and your Simulacrums themselves, the actual map piece, or the map, is worth quite a bit, or was worth quite a bit earlier in the league. That's just some examples of selling currency. Now you can do the same with all of this other gear. You can sell these you know, fragments of shape, which for example is 70 chaos, 75 chaos for fragment of knowledge. That's from running the shaper engagements. Now fragments of purification, these are usually like 11 to 15 chaos throughout league, but you get the gist of what I'm sort of talking about. Now if you're not using this currency, you're not using these breach stones, if you're not using, you know, scarabs, if you're not using even offerings of the goddess, you can sell all of this on the market, and you could sell it in bulk, or you can sell it one by one. It's entirely up to you. But you know, splinters of Chayula usually sell for a bit. They're like 1 chaos to 1 splinter of Chayula if you're collecting these. Now you can run it, get good gear from it, but if your character can't handle that and you're looking just to up currency, this is a really good way to do it. And basically selling currency to make more base currency is how you can back fund your builds, and is a really quick thing to do at the start of the league. You can basically liquidate, you know, all these Exalt shards. You get 5 per 16, and you know, what's that calculator? 5 times 16, you've got 80 chaos straight away in just Exalt shards. So if you understand a little bit of mathematics, and this is basic level high school maths, you can do it. You can flip currency, and you can make a lot of currency, and this is probably a really easy way for a beginner to start making decent amounts of change. All right, tip number 5. This one is the one that I abused a fair bit in the league, and this may change in the next league. So I don't know what the patch notes are going to be. It's very likely they're going to go, hey, this is bullshit. You know, we're not going to give you this. But this was the best way to make ancient orbs, and then flip ancient orbs to make really good currency. So the first thing I did in this respect is I unlocked all the awakened bonuses and map bonuses in this area, because what this lets you do then is it lets you unlock all these preferences for a particular map. Now, what I then did in Valdos, because Harbinger Farming is about efficiency, you want to get to the Harbingers and then cancel out the map, but you also want to be able to sustain those maps. So what I actually ended up doing was farming Canyon at tier 10. Now, I got to a point in the league where I wasn't too worried about XP. I was just after to build another 3 or 4 characters. So what I ended up doing was basically just running the map for the Harbingers. And the reason, and this is something I did later in the league, but you can get here relatively quickly if you're progressing your Atlas, if you watch my last video. Basically what I did is all the neighboring areas, I fully watchstone these areas, and then I dropped down to 2 watchstones in this particular area, and I actually have the watchstones that increase the chance of having additional Harbingers which are expensive, or were expensive. They don't price check when they're magic. And then basically what I did was preference Canyon. So Canyon would basically drop constantly, and I had a shitload of Canyon maps and still do. And then I just rinsed and repeat and ran Canyon and just ran it for the Harbinger, run to the Harbinger, kill the Harbinger. And I've got a video and I'll put the link in the description for this. Kill the Harbinger, collect the shards, and then rinse and repeat, do it over and over again, and just abuse the shit out of this mechanic. And basically this was generating tons of currency for me. Even after they did an unofficial nerf over this, the mechanic was still relatively profitable, and within an hour you might make 2 to 4 to 5 Exalt, who knows, it just depends on the RNG. You'll also get Exalt shard drops out of this, so it's an easy way to just generate straight up Exalts off the bat too. But that would be my my fifth tip, if you wanted to look at it that way, in order to generate. Okay, so tip number 6 is actually big game hunting. And when I say big game, we're talking about Sirus. Now, Maven is a bit of a shit fight. No one, it's not necessarily an easy fight and requires a lot of currency to invest in a character that can do that content, not to mention just the maps alone. This still requires you to be able to farm these crazy Uncharted realms, crazy ass maps, but this basically gives you more of an edge when it comes to farming Sirus, if you understand the Sirus fight itself. So obviously this is more of an endgame strategy, and I was doing this because that just let me farm maps, and I was generating currency from running maps and juicing maps, and then I would obviously kill Guardians. You have a higher probability of getting good shit from Guardians, such as Awaken gems and things like that. And then obviously Sirus is guaranteed to drop at least one, well, it can drop crap, but when you get it to Awaken a 9 and you have an increased probability of Awaken gems dropping, it becomes quite a successful way of making currency, and it becomes really quick if you've got the right character to burn maps out. So the other thing that you have to do when you look at farming Sirus in particular is you need to upscale your atlas. In this case, you want to take a depth tracker. Now, if they don't nerf this, I don't know what they're going to do. This increases the chance of completing map influence, which means it's going to take a lot less to complete the Guardian challenges to farm and unlock Guardians and then kill Guardians and get the chance of getting the Awakener jewels and things like that, and Awakening Exalts. The other side of it is you want to get whatever it is, Awakening, and this is going to mean that Sirus has a 50% increased chance to drop Awakener support gems. Now, some of these support gems, like for example, Awaken Multi-Strike, you might sell for 60 Exalt. Some will sell for nothing, like Awaken Fire Penetration. Others will sell for a moderate amount, like 8 Exalt or so for Awaken Brutality, things like that. But the effort that it takes to get there isn't too much. It's going to happen with native mapping, and you'll get to endgame and you'll basically smash Sirus if you've got the right build, or you follow one of my builds, because I normally only build characters that can take down Sirus A8. And then basically you'll get a good probability of getting a decent drop. And if you don't get that, you might get an Awakener's Orb, you might get some other form of Exalt or some other drop that's worth something, and that's pretty damn good. Now, the other thing that I unlocked here was Atlas Awaken, which gave 1+ to a Awaken level. That just gives you a high probability or a higher possibility or chance of getting a Awaken item dropping and or gem. So just worth having there if you can get up this far. Now, I obviously didn't unlock everything on my Atlas because I just sort of played a lot of characters and got bored, but you can do that, unlock more in the Atlas, and really get OP and get some good drops from this. I find this to be a more fun strategy with my playstyle. Other players will go, this is a shit strategy, but it's entirely up to how you want to play the game. This is my tips video, and this is my tip. And if this is not something that you like doing, then by all means, look to other things like Legion farming and things like that, which are other alternatives that generate good amounts of currency. But these are the things that I do in League to generate currency. But anyway, that's my 6th tip, is big game hunting. So the final tip that I've got, which is going to be tip number 7, is literally make some friends. And I have a guild that I'm going to be running into this league with a few buddies of mine, and I think I'm going to be running an Orobot this league. But make some buddies, learn how to play in a party, and the bonus that you get from having other people and maps trumps most other ways of farming, and will be one of the most efficient ways of farming. If you watch Empyrean Gaming and his streams and the crazy shit that he gets up to, normally what he does is he has a full crew when he runs maps. You have a curse bot, an aura bot, damage dealer, all that sort of shit, and then basically you juice those maps and you just reap absolute benefits and rewards, literally to the point where you're having headhunters drop in Nemesis enchanted maps and all sorts of things. That would be my 7th tip. If you want the highest yield of currency outside of becoming a master crafter and spending, you know, hours and hours of your time understanding how poe.db works, I would recommend that. Am I going to do it? Probably yes this league, but is it something that I normally do league on league? No, I just don't have that many friends. So I sort of hope this video helps, in particular with newer players and even intermediate players that are still sort of learning the game after about 300 or 400 hours. Unfortunately, that's just not enough time to master the game. For more pro players that might click on this video, yep, you probably have a fantastic strategy and that works for you. My strategies tend to work for me just off the back that I work a lot of hours, and it tends to be stuff that I can step straight into, make currency as I need it, and basically buy all the gear that I need throughout League. Now, by no means am I running mirror tier gear on stuff, and my general stance is, and if you've watched any of my build guides, is that I just don't think mirror tier is worth it. I think if you can do all the endgame content seamlessly without any problems, without going mirror tier, then you know, it's really the question of how high is the sky at that stage. Like, you could just continue to invest, but if you want to generate currency, normally you want to get to a plateau point in your build where you are not dying and you're sustaining maps and you're relatively tanky and doing plenty of damage, but then at the same time you're just stashing cash in your stash, and then it's a good time for all. But anyway, if you like this video, drop me a like, drop me a sub. The other thing is I've set up a nexus.gg MTX page. There's no requirement to buy MTX through that page. I've done it because it's a partnership sort of thing with nexus.gg, and it does help fund the channel a little more, but you know, it's entirely up to you, and I'm just plugging it because I'm a YouTuber. But yeah, if you like this video, if it helps you out, let me know in the comments. If you have any more questions about the strategies, put that in the comments as well. But until next time, have a good one, and enjoy the announcement in the morning. I'll be up at 5 AM ready to roll with that one, and expect some more videos, and bye.